Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
And welcome into Fantasy Football with Corey and Kyle. On this episode, we're going to discuss what we would probably argue is one of the most valuable and important roster spots on your fantasy football team. Join us as we spin the wheel for a Would You Rather on tight ends. And before we get started, I'm going to invite you over to fantasyfootballadvice.com, where you can catch all of the content from all of our content creators, all of our articles, all of our videos, and get that information to draft well this upcoming season and then win that season. All right, Kyle. Now, as I mentioned, we really value our tight ends, don't we?
There's nothing I love more than a good tight end.
Oh, of course. Oh,
except maybe
football roster on your
advice.com. Shameless plug.
But why is that?
Well, if you think about the tier drop-offs and the depth at the position, aside from maybe last year, which was super deep and they were all relatively even, like usually it is extremely top-heavy. And this year was no exception. You had a pretty clear top two, and then you had a large group that was pretty much the same. And so when you have that kind of difference at the position, it makes a huge difference. It gives you a positional advantage every week.
I agree. I consistently see teams that have punted on the tight end position struggle. And about halfway through the season, they're begging for a tight end in a trade. So I think because there is such a drop-off in those tiers, and especially after that one tier at the very top, and us talking about Bowers and McBride, right after that, it all becomes very muddied and kind of the same. You know, in past years, to name a few, you've had Gronk, who absolutely was dominant, was going early in drafts, and then it turned into Kelsey, who was very dominant going early in drafts. We're talking about first, second round draft picks in drafts because it was that big of an advantage on your roster week in and week out because of that divide. When compared to running backs, quarterbacks, wide receivers, there's not such a huge divide between the upper and lower tiers. So just kind of throwing that out there. With that being said, you want to spin the wheel and see who we're talking about tonight?
Let's do it.
All righty. First one up, let's spin the wheel. First one we'll discuss tonight is TJ Hockenson. Alrighty, there's our first one. Let's see who we're going to would you rather, TJ Hockenson or this thing spins a long time. That's okay.
It does, yeah.
Or Tucker Kraft.
Oh, wow. That's...
Okay. Kraft. That is not at all what I was expecting this to go on, but these are guys that
on rival teams, for one.
Their 2024 seasons were interesting too. You know, Hockenson going so late in drafts because of his injury, going to miss half the season. Tucker Kraft kind of coming out of nowhere. No one really had much faith and love being what he ended up being. So a very surprising year from Tucker Kraft. Let's talk about TJ Hockenson first, Kyle. I'll let you talk about him first.
Well, I mean, as we all know, he missed the first, 8 games of the season, 8 weeks, coming back from injury. And then he came back to a team that were playing better, had extra weapons. Addison was a year improved over last year. So he didn't come back with the need for targets that he had last year necessarily. They leaned on him heavy last year. And then this year it was not as much, but he had some standout games. I just don't feel like he was super consistent. Like when you look at his targets over the course of the second half of the season when he got back, 4, 9, 3, 9, 6, 5, 7, 5, 6, 8. Like, there's a lot of fluctuation and never got into double-digit targets. He only had a handful of games with double-digit fantasy points and no touchdowns. So it could have been because he was still kind of taking it easy after coming back from that injury. Like I say, Addison had a really great year. They could lean on him more. So I think that kind of helped them bring Hockenson back in slowly. But he still showed the flashes that made him that elite tight end. He still got the skill set. I think maybe next year we'll see him kind of get back to form, coming off of a healthy offseason, and work his way into that offense. He's going to have to. He's going to have a different quarterback this year. So,
yeah. I think I'm going to go the weak route here, and I'm going to make kind of an excuse for him, because he missed so much at the beginning of the season. He didn't have time to really build that rapport with Sam Darnold. And talk about surprises. Sam Darnold was a huge surprise coming in doing well. Grandy had good weapons, but he learned to use those other weapons while Hockenson was out, and he just continued to do that even when Hockenson came back, which is why a lot of people weren't excited when Hockenson came back, because they were like, well, he's got these other targets. He's been fine without Hockenson, so why would he just all of a sudden start leaning on Hockenson? And that actually came to fruition, right? You mentioned no touchdowns. That hurts. That hurts a lot. So coming back in week 9, not catching any touchdowns, I think he just missed a lot of that time to build that rapport with Sam Darnold, and the other guys had that time. So I'm kind of giving him a big excuse there on why his fantasy performance wasn't fantastic. Along with, you're coming back off of a big injury, getting back into game shape and getting back into the groove of things. There's a little bit of a, not necessarily a learning curve, but kind in a sense,
there's a mental thing coming back from an injury like that too.
Yeah.
Like, you can do all the rehab in the world, but it's different from actually playing in a game speed and all of that. So it is different. And so, and like with the touchdowns, he can only go up from here, right? So there's almost guaranteed positive regression in that regard.
Yep.
I do think just having a full, healthy offseason, with his team, I think he'll find his spot back in this offense where he belongs, because he is an elite tight end.
100%. The dude's athletic. He's still only 27 years old. I like Hockenson. Okay, let's jump over to Tucker Kraft then. Again, kind of a surprise, not only with him, but with his quarterback also being significant. Who saw that coming, right? So that was kind of interesting. I also think that there were a lot of people not sure whether it was going to be Tucker Kraft or Luke Musgrave who ended up kind of coming to the forefront of that offense, who was going to do what and everything, because Musgrave had some hype around him at one point in his career, and now he's obviously taken a back seat to Tucker Kraft, who broke out this season. He finishes the number 10 tight end on the season, started off his first 3 games really slowly, and then just kind of took off from there and became a pretty decent asset at the tight end position. Now, we already talked about he's obviously not elite. We talked about the elite at the very top, and then there being a drop-off. And tight ends this season were just so frustrating. If they weren't those top 2, they were so frustrating. It was a roller coaster ride. They were inconsistent. They were all kind of the same. Tucker Kraft kind of falls into that, but his boom games were pretty good boom games, if we're being honest. So what's your take on Tucker Kraft?
Well, you made a good point with Musgrave, was kind of what I was going to speak to as well. Last year as rookies, Musgrave was the guy. But as the season went on, Musgrave missed some time. Kraft had a couple good games. In the offseason, you heard whispers of, hey, Kraft's going to kind of take over this spot. He's a better receiver, et cetera, et cetera. And then that definitely came to fruition during the season. The problem with Kraft is he fell into the same situation with the receivers in Green Bay. His boom games were good. You just never knew when they were coming because every game it's somebody different, right? This game you got Reed, this week you got Kraft, this week you got Doubs. And so it's like you just never know. And so he kind of falls victim to that. But it also tells you with him finishing, because if you look at his numbers, he had 7 touchdowns, but he didn't have a ton of targets. Like 9 targets was the most he had, and that was one game. Week 4 is one of his boom games. But like, it goes to show you how weird the tight end position was this year, because he wasn't great. He was okay, but he still finished top 10. I mean, you look at the years Kelsey and Andrews had this year, which were severely disappointing. They still finished as 5 and 6 respectively. And so that's kind of what I was talking about earlier with you've got this big group after that top 2 that are all just kind of okay and kind of a little bit interchangeable. And so, yeah, he kind of came out of nowhere, but he kind of didn't at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
There were a lot that expected it, but then I think it happened a little better than people actually expected it to. So, yeah.
Okay. I won't make you speak any more to that. Okay. Let's go ahead and vote on who we would rather have. And let's do redraft first. Like always, let's do 1, 2, 3, and then show your number. We're going to go 1 for Hockenson, 2 for Kraft. All righty? All right, this is redraft. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Yep. Okay, so we both want Hockenson. What's your reasoning behind that, Kyle?
I just think he's a better receiver, just a better player overall. Like you say, some of his numbers were down this year, but coming back from that injury, not having that offseason time with Darnold, I think that knocked him down a little bit. But I do think he bounces back in a positive way this next year.
Yeah, I do too. And I mean, he's going to have McCarthy, who essentially will be in his rookie season in a way, if that ends up being the quarterback that they field this year, which it's looking like is going to be the case. I like tight ends in that situation a little bit. And coming from a more conservative offense in college too, I feel like that plays to Hawkinson's advantage.
Yeah. I might reconsider if they end up signing Rodgers. Rodgers is not a big tight end guy.
Yeah, I would agree.
Might reconsider, but probably not. Probably still stick with Hawk.
I would agree. Okay, now let's do Dynasty. Would you rather? All right, ready? 1, 2, 3, go.
Ooh, you went with Kraft on that one.
Yeah, I'm going with Kraft because first of all, he's younger by 3 years. So he's younger there. But I think I trust that offense in the quarterback situation long-term more. I think Love is going to be in Green Bay, and there's consistency there. We don't know how J.J. McCarthy is going to do this next year. He may suck. And if they get Aaron Rodgers, I mean, he may have one season and done. You just don't know. So I feel like there's some question marks there at quarterback long-term in Minnesota that makes me a little nervous to have Hockenson over Tucker Kraft.
Yeah, I mean, if Rodgers does go there, McCarthy sits behind one of the better quarterbacks all time for a year, and it steps up and he's the guy. They have a lot of confidence in J.J. McCarthy there.
Obviously.
I am not that – like, there is some concern because it's not as solid, sure, but I'm not that concerned about it. For me, it's almost the same reasons as redraft. It's just he's just a better player, a better receiver, more elite tight end. When you look at the age, if this was running backs, I'd take Kraft no problem with his age. But 27 for a tight end is not that old.
You're right.
So I'm not as worried about his age just yet at 27.
Any worries about injuries, re-injuries, anything like that with Hockenson?
No, he came back this year and looked pretty good, considering he just came back from that injury. So I'm not worried about it. Now. If other injuries start happening, then then you're in a CMC situation where it's like, do I or don't I get rid of him? But for now, I'm not worried about it. No.
Okay, fair enough. So agree on redraft, disagree on dynasty. Sometimes that's just how the cookie crumbles. All right, guys, you take that information. Let us know which one you prefer down in the comments. Let us know who you think is right, who you think is wrong, or if we're just both wrong because you just don't like us, that's fine too. So even if that's the case, good luck to you, and hope you get the tight end you want.
Yep. See you next time.
Hey, it's Ryan Seacrest. Life comes at you fast, which is why it's important to find some time to relax. A little you time. Enter Chumba Casino. With no download required, you can jump on anytime, anywhere for the chance to redeem some serious prizes. So treat yourself with Chumba Casino and play over 100 online casino-style games, all for free. Go to ChumbaCasino.com to collect your free welcome bonus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.